Okay, so now let's take a look at working with groups. So just like with Windows, we normally don't want to do a lot of permissions to individual users. We'll get to permissions here in a little bit, but you're going to see some drawbacks. Um, in some ways, the Linux isn't quite as flexible when it comes to file level permissions as Windows is. But using groups, you can still get the job done. So, um, let's take a look at groups. We're going to start by displaying the groups that we are part of. So, I'm going to do just groups. Let me get to the right screen again. Just groups. And hit enter, and this is going to show me all of the groups that my account is a member of. So it's a member of David, ADM, CD-ROM, sudo, dip, plugdev, and LXD. Now, this one didn't display the help for me because all I needed to do was type groups and that would work just fine. If I wanted to display the helps on it, it would be groups dash H, except that this one doesn't actually have any help information for it. That's okay. So, let's say I want to create a new group. Well, I'm going to have to sudo this. So sudo group add, just like user add, group add, and let's create a group named sales. And that creates a new group named sales. So how can we see? Well, we can cat again. Cat space forward slash etc forward slash group. And this should give us all of our groups, including down here at the very bottom, you'll see groups for each one of our users, and you'll also see a group for sales, the one we just created. Okay, cool. We now have a new group. So, how am I going to add users to it? Well, let's go back to our root account, just so I'm not having to type sudo in front of every one of these commands. I want to do a user mod, and I want to add to group sales for S. Smith and hit enter. Now, let's look at the help on the user mod. That stands for user modify. So dash H, I did AG. So if I look for lowercase a, that says append. Capital G is group. So basically it's append to group. Now I could have done user mod dash a dash capital G. And let's do that for T Jones. And that will work. Whoops. Once I specify which group I'm going to try to add T Jones to. And that'll work just the same way doing dash AG works. Okay, it works the same way. The dash just identifies options here, and then I can put them all in a string or I can put a dash between every one of them. It doesn't really matter. So now I've added T Jones and S. Smith to the group. Now I can also do this. This is from the user. Going user, add to group. I can also do the same thing, just like in Windows. I can go into the user account and I can add them to a group, or I can go to the group account and I can add a user. And do the same thing here. It's G password, GPASSWD. I want to append D Wilson to the sales group. And that's going to work just the same way. Now let's take a look at a couple of things here. I'm going to cat, actually let me tac, so we'll put this at the top line. Tac etc group. And, well, I should have gone with the last line. And do that and pipe it through more. So now we have the sales group, no password for the group, it's group 104, and we have S. Smith, T. Jones, and D. Wilson all added to the group. And you'll see those group members are put in separated by commas. So that gets all of those added to that group. Now if I cat etc password, you're going to see that here it doesn't necessarily show that I've been added to any groups. That's okay, it doesn't have to be. We have it in forward slash etc forward slash groups. All right, so I've created a group and I've added users to that group, and then by catting that etc groups, I can see which users are currently involved in my groups. Now, Each user, by the way, when you're adding a user to a group, remember to do the /a, which appends, it adds that group to that user. You can also replace that and not append, and then it just takes them out of a group and adds them to the, or whatever groups they were in, and adds them to the new one. Now, users, and this is going to be key when it comes to permissions, users can be part of multiple groups. And that's going to be key when it comes to setting permissions. Um, and so it doesn't matter how many groups that a user is part of. They can be part of multiple groups, and that becomes really useful. Now, let's do one more thing. Let me do a groups, and that'll display my groups that I'm currently involved in. Let me exit out of here. So let me do groups for D. Wilson. So D. Wilson is part of two groups, D. Wilson and Sales. If I just look up mine as David, you'll see I'm part of more of them, including the sudo group. Now that sudo group is what allows me to use that sudo command to do administrative functions or root functions. So if I want to add D. Wilson to that group, all I do is add them to, or give them those administrative permissions, all I do is add them to the sudo group. So it's sudo usermod append to group sudo for the user D. Wilson. And now if I do groups D. Wilson, you'll see that they are part of that sudo group. Now, your text is actually going to take you through how you can limit what they can do. If you just do it the way I did, you basically just gave that user full root access. There are ways to limit that, but you don't have to. You can give them that full access, and your textbook is going to cover that. So, we've created we've created groups, we've added users to a group, we've given a user administrative access by adding them to that sudo group.